Howdy folks, Redshire here, and welcome back to another replay video in World of Tanks. Today we're going to be looking at another game in my SP1C, this time on the Redshire map in encounter mode from the south spawn. I know some of you guys don't play encounter or assault, but a lot of the maps I actually kind of like the assault and encounter mode on when playing scouts. It isn't the best sometimes for tank destroyers or heavy tanks because the traditional positions don't work that you can either support or assault, as there are different angles and different terrain features and different positions of hard cover and soft cover than the standard version of the map. But I quite like using encounter mode and assault mode on scouts most of the time, especially on maps like Redshire, and maps like Sand River, and even Siegfried Line. Siegfried Line on standard mode, I actually quite dislike that map on standard mode, but on assault and encounter, it is pretty decent for a scout. But anyway, getting to the game here, we are a tier 7 scout in a tier 8 game, and barely a tier 8 game at that, so we're top tier. We get matched up like a tier 8 medium or tier 8 tank, and that will only be lasting until patch 9.18, where Wargaming will bring the matchmaking for scouts in line with most of the other tanks in World of Tanks, other than some preferential premiums and some low tier tanks, where they will be getting plus 2 tiers of matchmaking versus plus 3 tiers of matchmaking. So they will be getting the same kind of matchmaking as the rest of the tanks, or most of them rather. So because we are so high tier in this game, like I've said in previous videos, the higher the tier that you are in the game, in a scout, not only do you have to be thinking about giving good vision for your team, but you also need to be willing to do your own damage for your team as well. So before I start lollygagging on too much, let's just start the game. One thing about the game is that there's no artillery, so that's nice that we won't have to think about that vertical threat. Quite a bit of mobility on the enemy team and our team as well. They got 3 tier 7 mediums. The Patriot is actually quite a mobile tier 8 heavy. And they have the LTTB, Cromwell, 3485, Chaffee, and even their IKV tank destroyer is a pretty mobile tank destroyer. Moving up here into F6 using this bush of wind that I've shown you guys before, that's right next to this house. I love this position. From this position you can spot the D4, C4, C5, traditional camping position of the enemy here that like to sit up here on this ridge, and from here you can actually spot where this Patriot just crossed. You can spot the enemy team as they push along this eastern side, this 9-0 line as well, so you can spot 2 different flanks from this single position, and it's a really good position. And once again, being willing to take shots, right? I might be getting spotted when I fire if I get lit behind me, but if I do so, I do have the option of diving down into the riverbed for cover. So taking a chance here that no one behind me is in position to spot me. So we're getting some decent assistance damage and a few shots of our own damage in here at the start of the game. The enemy team are putting some early cap pressure on us in encounter mode, which you need to watch for more in encounter mode. Just being a little bit patient here, trying to decide what to do. And then once I notice where a lot of the enemy team is, I decide to start moving along this riverbed here and start to help flank the enemy heavies here from behind. Want to pause the game here. I was actually quite surprised that I got spotted diving down here and going into the riverbed, even though these tanks are up here along this ridge line, could have potentially spotted me. Usually they don't, depending on how they're sitting in their soft cover or whatever. But it's actually probably that this Chaffee was the one who spotted me, who's sitting in this bush here. But the reason that I'm pausing the game is when you're trying to decide if you want to make this move or not, where you move along this riverbed and flank the enemies from behind. Generally, what you need to be watching for is how much support do they have from behind them. There's 2 different positions or 3 different positions that can support these heavies if you try and flank them. The traditional spot here is in C5, where this SU-12244 is sitting currently. Also, some tanks like to sit along this ridge line here in what is that, D7. And also a really common position is over here along this B8, B9 area. You'll see tanks sit back here to support as well. So when you're pushing along here and trying to flank enemies and start shooting them from behind, you need to be keeping in mind that you're not exposing yourself too much to enemy fire from behind you as you do your flanking maneuver. And I don't think that Chaffee had 6th sense because he didn't start moving until I shot him, so but we get him taken out there. And unfortunately my flanking maneuver got spoiled, right? As soon as that Chaffee spotted me moving along, the enemy knew that I was coming. And in the time that it took for me to kill the Chaffee, the enemy heavies over here had killed our 2 tanks that we sent over here. I was trying to move over here in time to get a cheeky clip of damage in and then run away, because they have a really big overmatch over here on the 9-0 line. So eventually they're going to be pushing around down the 9-0 lines and into the south here, where our AMX M445 is and our SU-12244 is. But right now there's a lot bigger pressing issue, and that is the cap pressure that they're putting on currently. So I decided to leave the heavies for the moment and stop here for a second to see if I can help reset the encounter cap circle. Kind of surprised that I don't have shots here, and then I realize that there's a house there that's blocking my line of fire. Luckily our IS-2 drives into the cap circle and installs it on in encounter mode. If a tank from each team is in the cap circle, there's no progress made for cap points for one team or the other until one of the all of the tanks from one team are destroyed, and then you start accumulating points again. So now that the cap is stalled for the moment, I decide to stop and do some supporting fire for the my AMX M445, who actually might be AFK, and get some shots in there on those heavies that are crossing into the south. Now I decide that I'm on a timer, right? I decide that, well, it's inevitable. I can't put enough damage into these guys before they kill our AFK AMX and start coming up this 5-6 line here. If you look at the mini map, they kill out this guy and they'll start driving up here like this. So we're on a timer. We need to kill out these 2 tier 7 mediums over here on the one line in the castle here, and we need to kill out these tanks that are in the cap circle. That way we won't be getting shot by the heavies from behind us and these enemy tanks that are in front of us at the same time. We have to push out in one direction and kill it, so we aren't the ones that are being flanked here. And currently the SG-1C with the autoloader is really good at bullying and trading well with tier 7 and tier 8 tanks. You can drive up, take a shot, and then you can pump 2 or 3 shots of damage in return. Go for the LTTB here. Somebody else puts a shot into him, so that means I have another shot at the Cromwell, and luckily we ammo rack him there. So we take out 3 of the enemy tanks that were up here on the cap circle. The SU-100M1, one of our teammates took out, and then we were able to help kill the LTTB and the Cromwell. And in the meantime, a couple of our teammates killed out the Leo, the tier 7 medium tank there, and now they're pushing this T-43. Our IS-2 over here just killed this SU-12244, so our team are doing a great job of pushing out. They're doing the perfect thing that they need to be doing. They need to be pushing out in one direction, and we killed out the 3-4 line, and now we're about to kill the last tank that was over here on the 1 line. And after we do that, we can turn around and start engaging these heavies that are at the south of us here. So driving up and flanking this this T-43 from behind. Unfortunately, our Yeg Tiger 88 goes down. He was on the wrong side of the ridge over here in F5 and was exposed to all the fire from the heavies there, and he wasn't using the cover correctly. Unfortunately, leave the T-43 there on really low health, but we're able to expedite the situation and get him killed quickly. And this is one of the situations where I talk about mini-map counts are really important. They're important during the entire course of the game. You need to be constantly reevaluating where the enemy tanks are and their positions, and a lot of this comes down to map knowledge, about knowing which enemy tanks that you can attack and advance and assault on. But this is a really simple situation of that, where this T-34-85 here is full health and he's sitting back here in C1. But if you look at the team list here, they only have 6 tanks left alive, and we know where 5 of them were last spotted. And so we know that this T-34-85 here is all by himself, so we can easily bully him here because, yeah, I'm in a SP1C and I can bully him anyway, but I can also bully him because none of his teammates can support him either, so I only can potentially get shot by him and none of his teammates. So, and you need to be looking for those kinds of opportunities at any point during the game. This is a really easy situation to diagnose like that, but if you do more practice of doing this and doing mini-map counts and how many of the enemy tanks are left alive, how many of them are already, where are they at in the map, and find the vulnerable enemy tanks and the enemy tank positions to assault if you need to do so. The SP1C has a really nice reload on its clip currently, so generally the reload time for the clip is the natural break in between engagements. Unfortunately, you only get 1 shot of damage into the T-34-85 there, as the T-37 teammate there was on the same side and I didn't want to shoot him. Also, you need to be thinking about in the SP1C about derp guns of those kind of tanks. The T-34-85 using the derp gun usually is a little bit of a less danger when you're playing maybe potentially a heavy tank, but when you're playing an SP1C that has no armor at all, you can actually get penned and take quite a bit of damage. Now we're seeing the great strength of the SP1C here with a really good gun depression of 10 degrees. That's one of the great attributes of the tank there. We get the T-150 killed there, who was trying to shoot our teammates over the top of that mid-ridge there, and we get 1 shot of damage in on the IS here before we have to reload. Now their other remaining heavies are currently sitting in the cap circle, at least 2 of them. The IS-6. Really bad reaction shot there. And really taking a shot there that has a really low chance of penning. Should have been able to put 2 shots of damage there into the IS-6, but it had really bad anticipation on his movement there, and so that was my fault. So now I'm trying to relocate and flank these heavies from behind. They're kind of doing something a little bit weird here. They're staying together, which is good to help them from getting flanked, but they're also attacking from the same angle there. And we run smack dab into a KV3 unexpectedly here. Going for the turret shots here. What I did there was really something important to keep in mind, and a mistake that I make quite often actually in games. When you have heat ammunition loaded, which I had loaded for the IS-6, because potentially I might need it to pen the front of them or something like that, I unexpectedly run into this KV3, and you don't want to be shooting at spaced armor when you're shooting a tank with heat ammunition, because there's a chance that it'll detonate on impact instead of doing damage, and it kind of works like high explosive in that regard. So I decided to go for the flattest normal armor position areas on his tank instead of shooting into the side of his hull where his tracks were. I put the first shot into the front of his hull and then the next 2 shots into the side of the turret, because if I shot the side of his hull where the tracks are, the shot might have gone a little high or a little low and gone into the tracks, and I wouldn't have done damage to him, and I would have had to gone through another reload and kite him and drive around him while I did that, and I might have died doing that. So just a little bit of something to pay attention there when you're shooting your heat ammunition. So we take out the KV-3 here, but unfortunately another couple of our teammates die during the time that I was doing that. Now the two of the enemy heavies, the Patriot and the I-6, decide to try to put some cap pressure on us here, so that gives me a little bit of time. When the enemy team take the pressure off you, right? The tactical pressure is on us in the sense that they're putting cap pressure on us currently, right? But the engagement pressure is currently off us for the moment because they're not driving straight at us, right? So we have a little bit of time to relocate and try to find the isolated tank again, right? Like we did with this T-3485 over here in the C1D1 area earlier, the same thing is going on with this IS here that's kind of in this E5 area in the middle road here. And we know that he's a one-shot when we were paying attention to his HP last. So the more guns that we can take out more quickly, the better chance that we have of winning here. So I need to be careful because I only have 435 HP and potentially the IS-6 and the IS can one-shot me. Although it will take the Patriot 2 shots to kill me. But then the enemy heavy stopped capping, alright? So you need to be adapting and changing to what they're doing. So the Patriot is driving east over here. And I wasn't sure where the I-6 would be. But now that we're pretty clear to engage this IS. Unfortunately, missed the snapshot on the one-shot IS. But take our time there with that shot. And we know that the Patriot can't one-shot us, so we take our time and sit there and aim. And we get a shot of damage into him, and now he's a one-shot for us as well. So now I'm running away and getting distance away from the heavies there, which is kind of what I should have been doing already. And there we can see that the IS has only 26 hit points there. And now we're reloaded and we're shifting over south to support our T-37. But our T-37 was a boss and he was able to take out 2 Tier 8 heavies by himself with the help of the T-43 and me putting a couple shots of damage into him earlier. So he was able to clean up those last 2 Tier 8 heavies. So props to him and a shout out to him. Good job on his part. So you can see that when I was talking about earlier during the start of the game about how you need to not only be trying to get spots for your team, but generally the higher the tier that you are, the higher obligation that you have to do damage, and try to continually adapt to the situation regardless of the tier. Even sometimes it's best for you to just spot, sometimes it's best for you to do damage, and a lot of the time in a battle you're required to constantly be switching back and forth between those 2 roles as a scout tank, and recognizing the situations that when you need to spot, and then recognizing the situations where you need to give up your spots and help your team more by doing damage. So anyway, I'm going to quit rambling here. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this game in the SP1C, the Tier 7 German Scout on Redshire Encounter. Happy hunting and take care.